Hey guys, I'm in the middle of working on some other projects and I still have a lot to do to set up my workshop properly, but every day I see this color roundie sitting here and I'm really itching to dig into it. So what I was thinking I'd do is, well, try to power it up, as I'm told that this set is new enough to use pretty reliable caps. They should all be plastic film rather than paper, and the electrolytics may very well have a chance of reforming. So I believe this is a 1964 TV, or 65 maybe, so certainly newer than the sets I'm usually working on. In fact, about 2 decades newer than the sets I'm usually working on. So I think it has silicon rectifiers, not selenium, not tube rectifiers, and as I say, plastic film caps. Now, the guy I got this from, Doug, knows a thing or two about Zenith roundies, and he says it had no B+, but the tubes did light up. Well, there's a circuit breaker in these sets, so seems to me what's very likely is that when I tried powering it on, the caps hadn't seen any voltage on them in a long time, and there was a surge of current, and it popped the circuit breaker. So I don't know if he tried resetting it or not. That's what this little thing is down here. So push to reset. Kind of get this hung up a little bit, but alright, before I just go and plug it in, I want to get the back off of this and take a look inside and make sure all the tubes are seated and wires are connected and such. Alright, I got the back off easily enough. I really like the way they put these on. These sort of these speed clips here rather than screws, so you slide all these down and then the back pulls off. Call this the Service Saver chassis. It's a model 5311U. The chassis is 24 MC32. And there she is. I've done a little bit of research on this. I posted on Video Karma and I got some feedback from people, so I know a little bit about this. For example, I'd heard about these. It's actually fishing line, and that is what you use to center the picture if need be. I think you pull on it, or maybe you pull both at the same time, and I don't know exactly how it works, but it's attached to something down in there that was probably a centering magnet, and that's how you adjust it. Goofy, but that's why they did it. That I hope to never have to mess with. That'd be the Convergence Board. So we got 3 guns, red, green, and blue, and they're arranged in a triangle, equilateral triangle, and they shoot towards the front of the picture tube, and then there's a million little dots of phosphor, red, green, and blue. So these guns need to be directed at the screen such that the red hits the red phosphor, the blue hits the blue phosphor, the green hits the green phosphor as it scans across the whole picture tube back and forth and up and down. Well, that requires a lot of adjustments. So we've got magnets around here, and there are coils, I believe, and these adjust the coils. So there's physical adjustments of the magnets. And then there's a whole bunch of pots, and these look like they're inductors to tweak that. Also, you tweak the drive levels to make sure that the 3 phosphors are of equal brightness to get pure white. Alright, so that's that. Hopefully none of this will need to be monkeyed with, or at least not much. There's a chassis. It's got a power transformer. It's a nice thing to see. And like I said, it's got a solid state rectifier, so there's no 5U4 or anything like that. I've worked on some Zenith bug-eye sets from the late 50s. They used what looks like a similar construction technique. These are like hollow cups, and they would shove the component leads into them, and then I think they would wave solder it. So these cups get filled up with solder, and the component leads are stuck in there. When I pull the chassis out, we'll see that. It's new enough. It's got some compactrons in it. I can see one right there. And I believe these two are as well. It'd be the horizontal output tube, and I'm guessing that's the damper. And that is the high voltage shunt regulator. Now there should be a shield over that. I'm sure many of you have heard that there's an X-ray hazard on old TVs. Yeah, once you get above a certain voltage, like 20,000 volts, I forget what the exact threshold is, some of the components can start emitting X-rays. But it's not the picture tube. The X-rays are not shooting out of the front of the picture tube, like it's an old wives' tale. This is where they come from. And the high voltage rectifier as well, which is inside here. So that's why this should be shielded, and if it is, perfectly safe. No X-rays can get out. My shield is missing. However, this is a latter edition of this shunt regulator. If it was the A version or the B version, then it could very well be a hazard. But the C version has leaded glass in it, so it is an integral X-ray shielding. So it is possible that they shipped this without the shield, but I don't think so, because, well, this is kind of a telltale here. It's the grommet. So when the box was here, this would have been a hole in it for this lead to go through, and this would have protected the wire from chafing against the sides of that. So I'll rig up something. I'll get some sheet metal, and this is probably was part of something that held it on. Anyways, looks like everything's here. Sure about that. Just a bit of it was probably part of probably these wires were bundled and this was wrapped around them and twisted. Thought maybe this was cut off or something, but no, that clearly doesn't go anything. It's just like a twist tie. Alright, well, I am going to hook this up to my PR57, which has a maximum current, I think, of 4 amps, which should be sufficient. The other thing about these color sets is they draw a whole lot more power than most of the black and white sets I've worked on. Although some of those early black and white sets draw quite a bit of power too. I've got some that have 30 tubes or more in them. I'm looking on the back to see. I don't see any power consumption info. Just 120 volts AC, 60 cycle. That's curious too. Everything I've ever worked on said 117 volts, but this says 120. I wonder when the change happened. Well, doesn't say how much current it draws, but hopefully less than 4 amps. Otherwise, it's going to pop the breaker in my PR57. Now, I'm not using that for the Variac feature. I'm just going to apply full power. I'm not using it for isolation purposes because this has a power transformer. I'm using it because it's got a fuse and it's got a circuit breaker in it. So if anything is wrong with this, that will protect the set. Okay, I got a cheater cord hooked up. Now I want to be careful of a few things. One, the neck on this really sticks out far. I do not want to bump into that. Snap that neck right off. Also want to be careful of the high voltage. Sure, I work on TVs all the time, but black and white sets typically run on around 10,000 volts. This is more like 25,000, so considerably more of a shock hazard. If you're wondering about this little guy here, so the main high voltage rectifier is buried inside here. This guy, I believe, is focus rectifier. So there's this uses electrostatic focus, and they need, I don't know, it's like 5,000 volts or something like that. So this little guy here is a rectifier for the lower high voltage, whereas the main high voltage rectifier is in here. Oh, and I should explain what this is for. It's important to have regulated high voltage on a color set to get good color reproduction. So this is actually like a Zener diode. I mean, it actually functions exactly the same as a Zener diode to regulate that high voltage. So this can take quite a bit of abuse. It can handle a fair amount of power to bleed off. If so, say this thing's putting out 27,000 and you want 25,000, this will bleed off 2,000 volts, so to speak. Anyways, so how do you turn this thing on? Well, let's look at the controls. So, channel. I believe this will illuminate or something, and there'll be a channel number in there when it's on. This is fine tuning. It's kind of a goofy thing, but that's how it goes. And this is the UHF, the vernier drive. So just continuous tuning, it's coarse, and then it does fine. And that, I believe, is power and volume. And then here are controls for vertical hold, tone, horizontal hold, brightness, contrast, and color level. Funny, I haven't noticed any vertical height or linearity control anywhere. Gotta be buried in the back somewhere. Alright, so I believe to turn it on, you pull this out. However, my PR57 is not turned on. So I'll get that on, and then I'll turn this on. And, well, here we go. Whoa, big surge current, and then dropping down. So 4 amps would be over here. So we're drawing about an amp right now. Yep, tubes are all lighting up. And as they start heating up, I imagine that current draw is going to go up. And slowly climbing. Alright, I'll keep an eye on that. And on this at the same time. Climbing up. Approaching 2 amps. Hear a little bit of pinging in the high voltage area. Current draw settled back down a little. It's like 1.8 amps. Well, sort of a glow in the picture too. Let's see. That's brightness. Contrast. Really no sound. Well, that's something. We got a faint raster. A little bit of some action when I change the channel. Get the volume all the way up. Well, it could have been a whole lot worse. So apparently we've got B+, and we've got faint raster. Here's the brightness control. So it's up all the way now. Oh, let me check something. So I've been looking at current. I didn't check the voltage. Whoa, we're way down too low. It's almost like 105 volts. Let me crank that up. Starting to get a little crackling. And we got some arcing going on between that high voltage lead chassis. Picture got a whole lot brighter. That's good. Bit more action when I change channels. Cool. See, I gotta do something about that arcing. I got some high voltage putty around here somewhere. I can put some on there. You can see how there's a plastic shield, that high voltage box. Ooh, yeah. Kill the power. This is stuff I'm talking about. I can just break off a chunk of this and mush them down in there. It was really arcing bad right down in here from that red lead right through this piece of plastic here. Don't want to leave that condition going, or you could end up killing the flyback. Okay, I got a big old glob of high voltage putty on there. Rigged up a crude antenna. Let's give this another try. So nothing lit up here. Let's check on that. Hopefully it's just something as simple as a burned out lamp. It was lighting up again. Got a raster back. I'll keep my ears open for a sign of arcing. I'm hoping to pick up channel 6, but without any indication whatsoever of what channel I'm on, I just have to go all the way around the dial. Alright, well, I'm getting absolutely nothing through, no snow. So I think I'll do the simplest thing first, which is to check the tuner. Let's see here. I got more arcing again. Not sure where this time. But yeah, I'll have to do more work down in there. Can't have that. Alright, where's the tuner? I think it's in a separate section of the schematic. These are all controls. Purity magnets I was talking about. Convergence panel, focus. Let's see. Here we go. Here's your tuner. 6GJ7 and 6HA5. Those are fairly common tubes. Pretty sure I've got some on hand. I pulled the two tubes out of the VHF tuner. They both appear to be the originals. They're both Zenith branded. My money's on this tube being bad. This is a 6GJ7, which is the local oscillator mixer tube. Typically when the local oscillator's out, you don't get any kind of action or snow or anything on the picture. This is the RF amp. If it was weak, some signal would still probably get through. I was going to use my one of my Hickok testers, but they're too old. They don't support these newer type tube, so I got on my Suncor TC162. Already checked for shorts, no shorts now. Check for emission. Oh yeah, that's really bad. Barely above 0. Back of it, I'll check grid leakage. That's fine. Now it's a 2-function tube, so let's do the other side of it for the heck of it. Well, first I should check for shorts. Oh, no shorts. And emission. Oh, that side of the tube is actually alright. And no grid leakage. Alright, so yeah, one half of this tube is basically dead. Let's check this guy. 6HA5. The 6HA5 actually checks quite good, so I'm going to put this back in the set and replace that guy. Okay, waiting for the set to warm up. That's more promising. Now we're getting some static coming through on the sound. Hopefully we'll get some snow on the picture. Sort of. A lot more activity when I change the channel now. That would be channel 6. Not much to look at. But hey, we can listen to it. Alright. Don't want the DRM police to crack down on me. Alright, let's see if we can do something with that picture. Alright, there's vertical lock. Well, there's sort of an image there. But wow, is that out of focus? Well, there is a focus control on the back. I'll leave my camera pointing at the screen while I try to adjust the focus. Not really having any effect. Alright, well, we solved one problem with the tube. Well, maybe we can solve another problem with another tube. So I will check that 1V2 focus rectifier. Well, the 1V2 focus rectifier actually tests really good. However, high voltage rectifiers are notoriously tricky to test because in normal operation they run on thousands of volts, whereas this tester hardly puts anything on it. What I'm doing is I'm inspecting it. I've seen cases where the coiled up filament in there actually breaks loose and shorts against the body, but yeah, it looks alright. Well, I'm going to replace it anyways. It's not the original, I don't think. It's RC, any of the tubes are branded Zenith. So yeah, I'll dig up a new old stock one and pop it in there and see if it makes any difference. Curious that you get sound long before you get video. Seems like it takes a while for the high voltage to come up, or the maybe the CRT filaments. But hey, I'd say that focus is one heck of a lot better. Color though. Let's see. Turn up the brightness a bit. That's curious. Some issues there with the screen dimensions changing as I turn the brightness. Also, it's not filling the screen quite well. It looks like the picture is gradually getting wider as the set warms up. Definitely be a sign of electrolytic slowly forming or weak tubes. It's not quite going all the way to the top either, and the linearity looks a little messed up. Looks like it's spaced wider apart at the top and at the bottom. Anyways, what about some color? That's the whole point of this set. There's some color. Oh, alright. Ooh, we got color. Not bad for just replacing a few tubes. Adjusting the kind of tint control, I guess they call it. Let's see. Okay, this is the color level, so I'm all the way down now, so it goes to black and white. Now I'm increasing it. It gets pretty garish at the extreme. So back off of that a little. And then this is the hue. Seems like this pot might be a little goofy. I say that because it's kind of not responding smoothly as I adjust it. It kind of jumps around. Alright, well, the picture's definitely still out of focus, so I'm going to camera down again and go around the back and adjust that. This is when a mirror would be handy because I can just barely lean over and see the screen while I'm adjusting it. Control definitely has an effect now. That's better. Alright, cool. And that is a weak over-the-air signal. So, I'll try hooking up a converter box now and see what we can get.
I don't know.
Well, I gotta say, I'm really impressed with how the set is working. With so little effort.
Takes a big man to apologize. And in my book, you're tops. But my guys were deeply
I'm adjusting that hue control.
Now, for another $5,000, I could
Definitely want to do this with a color bar generator.
That won't be necessary.
Color level.
You're under arrest.
What?
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can or will be used against you. If you cannot afford an attorney,
You're crazy.
one will be appointed for you.
Hey,
Looks like it's been running. The screen gradually filled up better too. It's pretty much all the way to the top now, or just about. But you know, linearity seems to be a little off.
Each one is a misdemeanor.
Now, black and white sets are usually because the cathode bypass cap on the vertical output tube is gone or going bad.
Such as, you agree to live in this house till the work gets done.
okay, live here? You crazy?
So I suspect that's the same problem as, or the vertical output tube could be a little weak.
Meantime, my family and I move into a hotel.
Well, considering how much things improved with a few tubes being replaced, I think I'm going to go ahead and check the rest of them.
How nice a place you talking about?
I notice when I adjust the brightness now that the picture also isn't, the picture size is not varying. Definitely as I've let this set run longer, things are improving. I'm sure it's because the electrolytic caps are reforming.
Next time, remember, do it right the first time, and in the long run, you save.
Well, I'm certainly used to having to do a lot more work to get a TV running well. but I'm not complaining. Finally got myself a working vintage color roundie TV. So we can see there's some other issues here. I'm adjusting the horizontal hold. I gotta have it all the way at one extreme, or we're sticking in some really bad artifacts around text. I don't like it. I never like it when controls have to be at their extreme to get things to work right. So I suspect some component associated in the horizontal circuitry is
I know we should have come right away, but Arnold refused.
a bit out of tolerance.
We can't do this alone.
The right thing, Connie.
So that horizontal output tube, I'd like to replace that. However, again, I did a little bit of research, and that tube is a little hard to come by. I mean, they're out there, but you're going to pay for it because apparently hams latched onto that tube to make amplifiers for their HF rigs, and it drove the price up. Find that tube chart. Oh, so I'm back. 6JS6. There are some substitutes for it. I want to check that damper tube as well. Looks like it's seen a lot of use. 38T2, that's the high voltage rectifier inside that box. The rest of the tubes all look pretty straightforward, except that 6HE5. I'm not familiar with that number. That's a vertical output tube. Definitely want to check that guy. Now, I've already looked through my tube caddies. I got, still got a mess from the move, but I got 4 tube caddies off there in the distance, and I do not have any of 6JS6, but I do have a few boxes filled with Compactrons, some new old stock, some salvage from TVs over the years. I'll dig through them, and if I'm lucky I can dig one up. Also got to look up the few other tubes that are compatible with it. Well, unfortunately now I've got no choice but to dig one of these up, because even though I was very, very careful, when I pulled the plate cap off, it broke the little glass nipple up there and let the air in, so this tube is dead. So I'm going to start digging through the boxes for another one of those, and I'll start checking the other tubes. I've been going through and testing the rest of the tubes. Say maybe half, or maybe a little more, are Zenith branded, probably the originals. Kind of a mixed bag. Some of the tubes have a little bit of grid leakage, or this one, the vertical oscillator vertical output tube, has good emissions, but it's got an HK short, your cathode short. So I think I'll be replacing that guy. Still got a whole bunch to test. And gonna have to order up a horizontal output tube and maybe a few others. Like, I don't know that I've got any 6HE5s on hand. Okay, so I finished testing all the tubes, and about 2/3 of them had problems. Either weak emissions, or shorts, or really bad secondary emission, or grid leakage. So I put in some new tubes, and eventually, scrounging around, I found a horizontal output tube that tested good. However, we've got a little situation I will demonstrate here. Things are not working as they should be anymore. So you may notice I have a little gadget plugged in down there. Well, that lets you monitor the cathode current, which is a really key thing on these color sets. You don't want to have too much current going through that flyback, or you're going to burn it out. Or if you have too little, you don't have enough high voltage. So I do believe, according to the schematic, this should have 225 milliamps. However, assuming this thing is working right, I have not gone through the calibration, but something wasn't working right. Very dim, out of focus picture. Actually, no picture at first, until the set warms up for a while. So that could sound, but we have no image whatsoever. Well, see that current there, assuming that meter is accurate, it's less than 100 milliamps. Gradually, as this warms up, it'll hit about 100. Now, the thing is, this tube tests good. Tests just fine. However, as I've been told many times and have learned myself through experience, that tube testers are not the full story. You really need to try these tubes in a set, because the tube tester is not going to put full voltage or current through the tube as it would in a real application. Oh, and while I'm back here, I wasn't quite right about this tube. It actually does not have leaded glass, but it does have an elongated anode structure to block more of the X-rays, but it's still, it can emit X-rays, so definitely need to put a shield around that. Alright, so still have no picture. It's weird though. When I switch channels or play around with the fine tuning or contrast, I'll sometimes start to get a picture. You can see some flashes of light there. There, I'm playing with the fine tuning. Now we're starting to get something coming in. So I'm not 100% certain that the problem is that tube. So what I started doing is putting the tubes back, putting the rest of the tubes back one by one to see if anything would help. Because it could also be an issue with the signal driving that tube that's causing a problem. There's a weird effect though. As I play around with the contrast, it'll actually sometimes kind of come into focus, or if I play with the fine tuning a bit. But definitely really, really messed up. Very psychedelic. Alright, so as I'm pretty sure I mentioned, these 6J6 horizontal output tubes are not easy to come by. Or, well, maybe I should restate it, they're quite expensive. Pretty much all the tube vendors online sell them, but you're going to pay a premium. Cheapest I found is 26 bucks. You can pay well north of that, especially for the C version. There's an A and a B and a C. This set was designed for the A, so I don't need the C version. Now we're up to 100 milliamps. So I hate to do it, but I think I may just have to fork out. So 26 plus ship, basically about 30 bucks for just a tube, which I think would be the most expensive single tube purchase I've ever made. And of course I'll be very paranoid about it. Otherwise, possibly I could dig through more of my tube boxes, but I don't think I'm going to find any. There are potentially other subs. I think a 6 KD6 maybe. Some guys say it's a drop and replace. Other guys say you may want to make sure the bias is right. I think it draws a little bit more current as well. Or if you really want to go way out there, there are oddball voltage versions of it. There's like a 22 volt version of it, I think a 32 volt version, maybe a 26 volt version. get those for far less. However, you're going to need to add an extra filament transformer because all these tubes run on 6.3 volts except for that guy, which is 12.6. So I would need to add an extra transformer just to run filament power to that tube. Yeah, I'll check the voltages on that tube too. So that's weird. I adjusted the fine tuning and the picture came into focus. But I kind of lose color, and if I play around with the fine tuning, I've never seen a set that the picture would change focus so much just by adjusting the fine tuning. It goes from basically a blur to kind of sharp. But then you start losing sync too, because I'm off the channel. Weird. Or when I play around with the contrast, totally lose focus. Now it kind of comes back in. Now, I haven't measured the high voltage, but it sure feels like it's weak because earlier when I was running the set, you can tell when this thing's powering up. I mean, you can almost like feel it in the air, that high voltage, the crackle and the static electricity build up, and I'm not getting that anymore. So I'm pretty sure something's definitely amiss down here. Well, what do you know? I went digging through a box of what I thought were all octal tubes, and looky what I found. Question is it any good? This is the C variation. Getters sure look good. Guess there's only one way to find out for sure. Okay, turning the set on now.
Maybe in another set or so.
So,
This way again 200 or 300 years from now and try it out.
that's more like it. Huh, still no picture now. About 150. Ah, that's weird. Took a long time to kick in. Oh, Corona somewhere too. I can smell it. I'll have to track that down. Oh, weird. I know it jumped up to 225 where it's supposed to be. Go figure, I must have a black and white program tuned in. Let's get a picture back. It's an important thing. Focus is off because I was mucking around with the focus control. It's a little better. Cool. Nice to get a picture back on the screen. Alright, well after all that troubleshooting, I ended up actually putting most of the original tubes back in, so now I'll go back through and put the tubes that tested better back in here. Boy, sure I'm glad I dug up one of those tubes. Things are not easy to come by. Also annoying that I can't trust my tube tester, not at least when it comes to horizontal output tubes. I turned the set off and back on, and no high voltage. And I recall a moment ago when I got the set working, things sounded kind of weird, and the high voltage just sort of kicked in later than it would normally. Well, tested this tube, and it turns out it has an intermittent short. I whacked at the side a few times and got it to clear out, but unfortunately I don't feel confident to use that tube long term, so I forked out the money. And I also took a gamble buying a new old stock one off of eBay for 14 bucks, but it tests great. Even though I can't really trust my tester, it definitely has better emissions than any of the other 6JS6s I've tested. But for the meantime, I've left this guy in there. What I may do, since these tubes are so hard to come by, is if that short returns, I may try using my Syncor CR70 CRT tester, which has a clear short feature, to try to blow the short out of there. There's probably a little bit of junk floating around inside the tube. I tapped it and looked all around inside the glass. I didn't see anything, but it's typically where a short comes from. It's not a heater cathode short. Those generally you can't clear out. It's the grid, actually. Anyways, I went ahead and put all the good tubes in, and the set is definitely working better now, so let's take a look. I'm going to finally get back to the channel indicator, which is still dark.
or visit SoClean.com today.
I'll clean that volume control too. There we go. Select what habit. I've got a black and white program on. I'll try to change the channel, but notice it's completely filming the picture like it should, so no doubt it was a weak horizontal and vertical tube causing the problems we saw earlier. But now a new problem has cropped up. I've got the focus control all the way at one extreme, and it still isn't quite sharp in focus. Now there is a high voltage adjustment control in the back, which I may need to check out. But I'm not going to mess with any of the fine adjustments until I pull the chassis and go over it. So there may very well be components that are out of tolerance. Let's see if I can find a color program to look at. Definitely got a lot of improvement out of just by changing some tubes. Also, the color's not quite as brilliant as it seemed to be earlier. This is what the color turned up all the way. Horizontal sync is much better. Used to have that at one extreme, now it locks about 2/3 through the rotation. So even as is, it's definitely a watchable set. I think I can shed a little light, so to speak, on how the channel indicator works, because it just so happens that a new old stock Zenith replacement channel selector showed up on eBay a couple weeks ago, and I don't really need one. I thought, hey, why not? chrome plating's definitely in better shape than the one I've got. And I think I can show you how it works. So on the back side, got all these plastic tabs at an angle, and if you look close, they've got numbers on them. Well, if I hold this up to light, it's a little hard to figure out exactly where the light should be. But I think you can see there are numbers. Now in the set the light is much closer, but I haven't been able to figure out where the sweet spot is, because as I get this closer and closer to my light source, it just goes completely out of focus. But I imagine in the set they've got things arranged right, so you'd only get one new number illuminated in it. It's in focus on the front. I poked around inside and did indeed find a light bulb holder, and it had a W240 bulb in it. I had to look that up. It looks like a Type 47, but it's a little bit different. It actually is higher wattage output and draws more current, so I imagine it's brighter. Well, I do have some long life 47s on hand, but I figure it's not going to be bright enough, so I think I'll try one of these, which are chip LED 47 type compatible. That just means it runs on 6.3 volt filament, as does this Type 240. Well, maybe not. I'll have to see, because that's the shroud fits over the bulb. It may not fit over these. If it doesn't, I'll have to go with the 47 type bulb. I don't have any of these W240s on hand. I managed to pull the knob off, so now we can see down inside there. So there's where lamp is, so I need to figure out how to adjust that such that that slot is giving light to the right place. It would seem having it straight up is right, but we shall see. Boy, that is one finicky light to adjust. I cleaned out the fine-tuning knob, which is clear plastic, and it had a bit of gunk built up on it that helped with the clarity, and I put on the new old stock knob, and it's the best I've gotten so far. It's not perfect, but certainly a lot better than not having anything there. Cool. So, what next? Well, I mean, I could just leave this up like this and run it indefinitely, and I certainly don't have plans to dive right into pulling it out. Next thing I might actually do is figure out where to put it upstairs and kind of show it off, but eventually I do want to pull this chassis out and for sure clean out the high voltage box and see if I can get a better fix going on that high voltage situation, which does occasionally have a little bit of a crackle, and replace the electrolytics at some point. But for now, I want to get back to other projects. So I hope that you enjoyed this sort of initial power-up checkout and tube replacement on a classic Zenith color roundie from about 1965.
We all work for DNA, and Sherwood worked in the blood products division at Clarendon. These glass could be from a broken vial.
He's a salesman. Salesmen carry samples.
A loose vial in an envelope. It's a very special sample.